helps us understand what he's really dealing with. That he's trying to calm down and he's choosing that road before surgery. It's a smart thing to do, even if he's missing a couple slams.
Cincinnati sold certainty before Alcaraz gave it. A tennis expert has finally challenged the comeback story. He reveals why the Spaniard is still silent, even as officials promote August. Alcaraz appears to be refusing every chance to confirm the date. Yet his return may depend on one test nobody can see. The latest reports changed the mood instantly. Alcaraz was still increasing the force of his hitting. His wrist had not yet endured the punishment of match-level tennis. Controlled rallies looked promising, but they could not answer the question hanging over Cincinnati. René Stubbs had already exposed the clue. In late June, Alcaraz said he hoped to start hitting harder soon. That sounded positive. It also revealed how far he remained from certainty. The injury began in Barcelona. Months disappeared. Sinner moved ahead. Ranking pressure tightened while Cincinnati promoted a return that Alcaraz himself would not guarantee. Nobody can promise what his wrist will reveal under real pressure. Subscribe now if you want the truth behind tennis headlines before official statements soften the danger. Alcaraz is not hiding a finished decision. He is waiting for one brutal test to decide whether Cincinnati becomes his comeback or the moment everything collapses. That decision will not be made by a promotional poster, a tournament entry list, or a hopeful training clip. It will emerge during the hardest part of Alcaraz's recovery, when controlled contact disappears and the right wrist has to absorb the speed, repetition, and unpredictability of real tennis. Cincinnati may keep his name in the field, but his body will decide whether the comeback survives. The next phase carries more danger than the first visible signs of progress suggested. Hitting softly proves that the joint can tolerate limited contact. It does not prove that Alcaraz can serve at full speed, attack a heavy forehand, react late to a return, or defend from a stretched position. Those actions place different demands on the wrist. A player can complete a calm session without pain and still discover trouble once the ball begins arriving faster than planned. That is why the latest information matters. Reporting from Spain described the coming weeks as decisive. The plan was to increase impact gradually before Cincinnati, then judge the wrist after each rise in intensity. A person close to Alcaraz's camp confirmed that Cincinnati remained the intention, although participation depended on a positive response. That qualification transforms an apparent commitment into an unresolved medical decision. The public has mostly seen the encouraging side. Alcaraz returned to the court and began using his right hand again. His expression looked brighter than it did when the injury first forced him out in Barcelona. Those images naturally created excitement, although they also encouraged conclusions that his team never announced. Visible progress can exist long before a player becomes ready for competition. René Stubbs highlighted that difference when she discussed his recovery. Alcaraz told her near the end of June that he hoped to start hitting harder soon. The reply sounded positive because it showed movement in the right direction. Its deeper meaning was more cautious. Full force had not yet returned. Stubbs understood the risk because she experienced a serious wrist problem during her own career. She advised patience rather than treating a short practice video as proof. That expert perspective gives the headline its strongest foundation. Alcaraz is not refusing to confirm his return because he enjoys creating confusion. No verified dispute with Cincinnati has surfaced. His team has not announced a secret withdrawal. The real reason is more uncomfortable. He cannot honestly guarantee a date before the wrist survives the demands that ended his season in April. A tournament entry creates a powerful illusion. Cincinnati officially included him in its field and promoted him as its defending champion. Reuters reported that he was set to return, while other coverage described the tournament as his target. Those phrases sound similar, but they carry different levels of certainty. Set to return suggests a completed decision. Targeting Cincinnati acknowledges that rehabilitation can still change the plan. Alcaraz has behaved as though only the second description is safe. Tournament organizers have every reason to present the strongest possible field. Their announcement reflects accepted entries, not private medical guarantees. The presence of Alcaraz's name means he has preserved the option to compete. It does not mean his doctors, physical team, and coaches have completed every stage required for a return. Fans buying tickets may see certainty. The entry system only records intention. His US Open listing creates the same misunderstanding. Alcaraz appears in the men's field because he remains eligible and intends to defend his title. That status protects his place in the tournament. It cannot show whether his wrist will tolerate several difficult matches across 2 weeks. New York is the objective. Cincinnati is supposed to provide the competitive test before it. Neither event can force the body to follow the calendar. The gap between official promotion and personal confirmation has produced the rage surrounding this story. Some fans believe Alcaraz owes them a direct answer. Others suspect that his camp knows something serious and refuses to disclose it. Those theories grow because silence invites drama. The verified information points toward uncertainty rather than deception. His team knows the direction of travel. It does not yet know whether the final steps will be successful. Alcaraz's style increases the challenge. His game depends on speed, violent changes of direction, explosive racket movement, and confidence under pressure. He often creates offense from positions where most players would settle for survival. That freedom requires complete trust in the right hand and wrist. Even a small hesitation can alter his timing. A subconscious attempt to protect the joint could reduce racket speed, shorten the follow-through, or change the angle of contact. Kyle Edmund made that psychological point especially clear. Having faced serious injury problems himself, he argued that Alcaraz needs full confidence before returning because his explosive style cannot function properly with doubt. Edmund was describing instinct rather than fear. Once attention shifts toward an injured area during a rally, movement and shot production lose their natural flow, giving the opponent useful information. Cincinnati would expose Alcaraz to those variables immediately. The event is not a gentle exhibition designed around his recovery. It is a Masters tournament filled with elite opponents preparing for the US Open. The hard courts demand sharp movement and repeated first-strike tennis. A single long match could test the wrist more severely than several quiet training days. A deep run would compress recovery between rounds. Cincinnati offers valuable preparation, yet the same opportunity carries obvious danger. Match play could restore his timing before New York and provide evidence that the wrist can handle competition. A difficult reaction, however, would leave little time before the major begins. His team must decide whether the information gained from playing justifies the possibility of another setback. Enthusiasm cannot complete that calculation. The timeline explains their caution. Alcaraz injured the right wrist during his opening match against Otto Virtanen in Barcelona. He completed the victory, then withdrew before facing Tomas Machak after tests showed the issue was more serious than first believed. His statement emphasized listening to his body and protecting his future. That language established a clear principle. He would not trade long-term health for one appearance. Madrid disappeared from his schedule soon afterward. Rome and Roland Garros followed. The grass season then passed without him, including Queens and Wimbledon. Montreal was removed as his recovery continued. Each withdrawal created more urgency around the next possible event. That pressure has now landed on Cincinnati because it is the remaining high-level test before the US Open. Alcaraz also faces the responsibility of defending his US Open title. Cincinnati matters because practice cannot reproduce every element of match rhythm. New York demands physical durability, emotional control, and rapid adjustment across different opponents. Entering the major without recent competition creates uncertainty, while an early return in Ohio could produce a larger problem. His team must choose between two imperfect paths. That conflict is the real story hidden behind the apparent refusal. Preparation could support his recovery or expose its limits. Certainty can only develop after the wrist accepts greater danger. Defending the US Open title makes sense only if Alcaraz can swing without protecting the joint. No public statement can resolve pressures that remain physically connected to every harder session. Improvement can be deceptive because comfort during ordinary activity reveals little about tournament stress. Controlled exercises may restore mobility, and light hitting may feel encouraging, yet the joint must eventually tolerate a full service motion hundreds of times. A player can appear close to competition, while the most difficult stage of rehabilitation still remains ahead. The exact diagnosis remains private, which has encouraged speculation. Different reports and commentators have suggested possible conditions, but Alcaraz's camp has not publicly named a specific tear, rupture, fracture, or tendon problem. Converting those guesses into facts would weaken the story. The known timeline already shows that the injury was significant. It kept a 7-time major champion away from the tour for more than 3 months and removed him from 2 Grand Slam events. The latest reporting supports that conclusion. Alcaraz's plan involved gradually increasing the impact on the ball over 3 weeks before deciding whether to travel to the United States. Cincinnati would serve as an initial examination, while the US Open remained the major objective. The trip depended on how the wrist responded and how his team interpreted that response. Every important verb remained conditional. The tournament's promotion therefore appears bolder than the player's position. Cincinnati can reasonably advertise an entered defending champion, while Alcaraz avoids guaranteeing attendance because his information may change. Their responsibilities differ. Organizers sell the field available today. The player protects a career that could be affected by tomorrow's training response. Fans occupy the uncomfortable space between those positions. They see ticket campaigns and assume the comeback has been approved. Then they notice Alcaraz's silence and suspect a contradiction. The contradiction disappears once entry and readiness are treated separately. He can intend to compete while refusing to confirm that his body will allow it. Refusing to confirm, therefore, needs careful interpretation. No reliable evidence shows that Alcaraz rejected a direct demand for an answer. The wording captures his unwillingness to turn a target into a guarantee. That distinction keeps the headline dramatic without inventing a confrontation, while his silence points toward caution instead of rebellion. The experts have not claimed access to confidential scans or a private decision. Their value comes from experience with elite tennis and difficult recoveries. Stubbs, Muguruza, and Edmond understand that appearance alone cannot establish wrist readiness. Their comments explain why visible progress has not yet produced a final statement from Alcaraz. Stubbs's exchange is especially revealing because Alcaraz's own wording exposed the stage of recovery. Hoping to hit harder soon meant the process had advanced beyond total rest, yet remained below match intensity. Her warning carried authority because she knew how easily optimism can outrun the joint. The exchange gave fans a small but important glimpse inside the timeline. Edmond added the question of trust. Alcaraz cannot compete naturally if attention keeps drifting toward the wrist after demanding shots. Instinct controls his movement and racket speed, so confidence must remain intact through late contact, sudden defense, and repeated serving. A medical opinion can guide the process, but trust develops only after successful exposure to greater stress. Muguruza supplied the warning about urgency. Major champions understand the pressure created by missed events. A player sees rivals winning trophies, rankings changing, and important dates approaching. The desire to return becomes stronger precisely when patience is most necessary. That emotional conflict can influence decisions even inside experienced teams. Physical fitness does not remove the problem. Alcaraz can maintain conditioning, movement work, and general strength while protecting the injured area. That preparation helps reduce the time needed once full tennis resumes. It cannot replace the specific load created by striking thousands of balls. Tennis fitness includes tolerance in the exact structures used during competition. Serving may become the most revealing measure because it combines speed, repetition, and pressure. Ground strokes can sometimes be moderated during practice. A competitive first serve demands commitment. The player cannot guide the motion safely and expect normal results against elite returners. Reduced serving speed would affect the next shot and place additional stress on every service game. The forehand carries similar importance. Alcaraz uses it to dictate, change direction, and finish points from difficult areas of the court. Protecting the wrist would reduce one of his biggest advantages. Opponents would notice quickly if he avoided acceleration or preferred certain contact heights. A comeback at reduced freedom might place more physical strain on his legs because points would last longer. Returns create another uncontrolled test because the opponent supplies the speed and leaves little preparation time. Contact near the body may jam the arm, while a wide delivery can force an awkward stretch. An attack on a second serve requires confident acceleration. Practice partners can imitate these situations, although match pressure changes how the body reacts. Defensive tennis may present the greatest unpredictability. Alcaraz frequently reaches balls late, slides into difficult positions, and creates unexpected angles. Those shots are central to his appeal. They are also difficult to protect during rehabilitation. A player can promise himself to remain controlled, then instinctively chase a point once competition begins. The wrist must be ready for that instinct. Successful play in Cincinnati would still leave important questions. An opening match could establish basic competitiveness, but durability would require evidence across several rounds and limited recovery time. The US Open presents a longer commitment, with best-of-5 tennis capable of turning one difficult day into hours of strain. Cincinnati may build confidence without fully answering the New York challenge. This is why a late confirmation would make more sense than an early declaration. Alcaraz's team needs data from hard sessions, practice sets, recovery periods, and match simulations. Each successful step reduces uncertainty. A public promise before those steps offers no medical benefit. It only satisfies the demand for a headline. The commercial forces surrounding the situation cannot be ignored. A defending champion attracts attention. His rivalry with Sinner sells tickets and broadcasts. The US Open benefits from promoting its title holder. Sponsors want the star visible. None of those interests are improper, but they create momentum towards certainty. Alcaraz's silence acts as a barrier against that momentum. The calendar adds pressure from another direction. Cincinnati begins on August 13th, while the US Open starts on August 30th. That leaves a narrow period for testing, travel, competition, recovery, and adjustment. Skipping Ohio would remove valuable preparation, but an early appearance could endanger the entire trip. The team must choose between imperfect options rather than waiting for an ideal schedule. A strong 3-week progression would make travel more responsible. Alcaraz could move from harder contact into live drills, then introduce practice sets once the wrist remained stable. Consecutive sessions would reveal recovery patterns, and match simulation would test unpredictable contact. Completion of that process would provide far stronger evidence than any optimistic announcement. A negative response at any point could stop the process. Renewed discomfort might require reduced intensity or additional rest without indicating a catastrophic injury. Such a reaction would simply show that the wrist had not accepted the latest workload. Rehabilitation often depends on adjusting the dose rather than forcing the original calendar. That possibility explains why Alcaraz's camp avoids exact promises. A return date can become a psychological trap. The player may feel pressure to meet it even when the body sends warning signs. Coaches and medical staff may face questions about every delay. Removing the deadline allows decisions to follow evidence instead of public expectation. The cost of caution remains real. Alcaraz has already missed a major portion of the season. He lost chances to defend titles and ranking points. Competitive rhythm cannot be stored. Rivals have gained confidence while he has watched from outside the draw. Another withdrawal would deepen the frustration for everyone connected to his season. Long-term value still outweighs the cost of waiting. Alcaraz is 23 and owns 7 major titles. A healthy body could support many more years of elite competition, whereas one rushed month could threaten that future. Cincinnati carries importance, and the US Open carries greater prestige, but neither deserves priority over the career that makes both opportunities possible. His silence follows that hierarchy. Cincinnati remains a serious target because useful match preparation could come from playing there. New York supplies even stronger motivation for careful work. An adverse response from the wrist would still outweigh both events, which explains why Alcaraz has not converted an intention into a guarantee. Some fans may interpret caution as weakness because Alcaraz usually competes with visible courage. Injury management demands a different form of strength. Competitive bravery accepts risks that belong inside a match, whereas responsible rehabilitation rejects danger that offers no lasting benefit. The wiser decision may disappoint a tournament today while protecting the rivalry for years. Collapse in Cincinnati does not require a dramatic re-injury on center court. The plan could fail during preparation if full force produces discomfort, or a late withdrawal could follow an unsatisfactory response. Competition might begin before soreness forces another stop. Any of those outcomes would disrupt the US Open plan without creating the spectacular scene many headlines imply. The comeback scenario carries its own uncertainty. Alcaraz could arrive, win matches, and look comfortable. Questions would remain about durability after the long absence. Timing under pressure may need several rounds. Decision-making can become rushed when a player has not competed for months. Physical readiness does not guarantee immediate championship form. That reality should lower expectations without reducing excitement. Cincinnati does not need to produce a title for the return to succeed. A few healthy matches could provide valuable information. The most important result may be leaving Ohio with the wrist stable and enough confidence to prepare for New York. Judging the week only by the trophy would miss the purpose. His defending champion status makes restraint difficult. Alcaraz won Cincinnati the previous year, so a cleared return would carry points, reputation, and immediate expectations. Fans would view him as a contender, while media coverage would compare his form with the level that produced the title. His team must judge success through health rather than outside standards. A similar problem awaits at the US Open. Public judgment treats a title defense as a simple choice between retaining the trophy and losing ground. Rehabilitation uses a different measure centered on freedom, health, and restored trust. Alcaraz could play an impressive tournament without winning again, while a reckless campaign might damage the months that follow. Here, the rage bait promise finally pivots. Alcaraz is not hiding a sinister truth. The disturbing reality is that much of tennis has treated his comeback as settled before the decisive test finished. Tournament promotion has created a picture that his rehabilitation has not yet earned, leaving the player to resist certainty produced by everyone around him. Experts recognize the gap because they have seen players return too early. Wrist injuries have altered careers, reduced shot quality, and damaged confidence. Alcaraz's camp does not need to assume the worst to respect those examples. It only needs to understand that the joint deserves more caution than the calendar allows. Discipline is essential because the detailed diagnosis remains private. Outsiders cannot responsibly claim a torn tendon, damaged ligament, proposed surgery, or any other specific condition. The established facts already carry enough weight. Barcelona revealed a problem more serious than expected. The absence became lengthy, and full-intensity testing remained unfinished in late July. Those facts justify the headline without invention. Alcaraz is still refusing to confirm his return because necessary information remains unavailable to his team. Cincinnati has recorded and promoted his entry, although readiness belongs to the wrist and the training response. That unresolved difference drives the entire story. His next public message may sound simple, whether it confirms travel, announces a withdrawal, or keeps the decision pending. Weeks of private evidence will sit behind that sentence. Coaches must evaluate the shape of his strokes, medical staff must study each reaction, and Alcaraz must decide whether hesitation has disappeared from his swing. The most important judgment belongs to the player because outsiders cannot completely measure pain or trust. Imaging can reveal structure, while physical testing offers information about movement and strength. Neither tells Alcaraz exactly how freedom feels when a fastball reaches his forehand. Honest feedback during demanding sessions will shape the final decision. That responsibility can be difficult for an athlete whose instinct is to compete. Elite players often tolerate discomfort that would stop ordinary activity. Their pain threshold becomes part of their success. Rehabilitation requires a different skill, distinguishing manageable sensation from a warning that should not be ignored. Alcaraz has already said he wants to listen to his body. The Barcelona withdrawal demonstrated that approach. He could have tried to continue after beating Virtanen. Instead, further tests led to his exit before the second round. The decision cost him a home tournament and began months of uncertainty. It also prevented one match from becoming a larger gamble. The same principle now governs Cincinnati. His entry can remain active while progress continues, preserving a valuable option until evidence demands a change. An early withdrawal would discard that opportunity without necessity. whereas premature confirmation could trap him inside a promise. The conditional position gives his team room to follow the wrist. Fans should focus on the recovery sequence instead of waiting for one dramatic statement. Greater force during hitting would offer an initial signal. Practice sets and consecutive high-intensity days would provide deeper evidence, followed by travel if confidence continued growing. Even a place in the draw could not prove how the wrist will react during competition. That sequence creates the suspense gap the story deserves. Progress brings Cincinnati closer while exposing the joint to greater stress. Improvement and danger rise together because the work required to prove readiness may also reveal that the comeback remains premature. No expert can predict the final answer with certainty. Stubbs, Muguruza, and Edman can explain the risk because of their experience. They cannot feel Alcaraz's wrist. Their warnings justify patience, not panic. The decision remains inside a small group that has access to his response after every session. The cleanest conclusion is less sensational than the title, but more compelling. Alcaraz does not possess a confirmed return that he is hiding from the public. His caution reflects a decision that may still change, making the silence a visible sign of an unfinished medical process. Cincinnati remains possible because recovery has moved forward and the entry is active. Alcaraz is also listed to defend his US Open title, which keeps New York as the major objective. Both opportunities depend on one condition. Full-intensity tennis must produce a stable response rather than another change in the plan. Until that condition is met, confident announcements come from people outside the decisive test. Tournament officials discuss the field, reporters describe the intended comeback, and supporters debate probabilities. Alcaraz carries the physical consequence if the timing proves wrong, giving his caution more weight than every external prediction. That is why his refusal matters. A quick confirmation would calm the public and strengthen Cincinnati's promotion. It would not make the joint safer. Waiting creates frustration, but it protects the only answer that counts. The final call may arrive close to the tournament because the team needs every available session. That timing should not be mistaken for chaos. It may reflect a process designed to collect enough evidence before accepting a high-level competitive load. Late certainty is better than early fiction. A favorable response would let Alcaraz return with a clearer mind. Successful, harder hitting, live points, and repeated sessions would show that the wrist accepted greater stress without a setback. Evidence of that kind could restore instinctive competition and prevent him from checking the joint after difficult shots. Hope alone cannot create the same confidence. Continued uncertainty would make withdrawal the safer choice, protecting the forehand, serve, movement, and freedom that define his game. Missing Cincinnati would create immediate disappointment, but another wrist setback could alter far more than one tournament and damage the entire preparation for New York. Pressure for a dramatic answer keeps rising as the rivalry, rankings, and US Open approach. A medically useful decision takes longer, which explains the contradictory signals surrounding Alcaraz's comeback. That delay reflects the price of keeping tournament marketing behind the only evidence capable of protecting the current season, long-term health, competitive freedom, and everything still possible for years ahead. The entry supports a comeback, and tournament promotion strengthens that impression. Alcaraz's target also remains unchanged. None of those signals can replace a response from his wrist. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share your verdict in the comments. Does the value of Cincinnati match practice justify the risk before the US Open? Or should Alcaraz delay his comeback until the right wrist provides confidence?